everyone, thanks so much for dropping by. I'm Lisa and this is my channel, The Southern Seamstress. I hope everyone's doing well today. If you're like me, I'm sure you're trying to get a few more last minute winter projects in before spring arrives. It seems like I always have so many projects and just not enough time to do them all. So I've been trying to decide what projects I can get done before spring and which ones are going to have to wait till next fall. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Itch to Stitch's Castillo Cardigan. I'll be letting you know what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and try to give you a few tips to help you out if you decide to make the cardigan. So back in January, I did a Make 9 video where I talked about 9 patterns that I wanted to make for 2024. And the first one I completed a few weeks ago, and today I'm reviewing the second one that I've completed of my Make 9. And that is Itch to Stitch's Castillo Cardigan. This cardigan comes in sizes 00 to 20, which is a bust size of about 31 inches to 46 inches, waist about 25.5 to 40.5 inches, and the hip 33.25 to 48 inches. My measurements fell into a couple of the sizes. In the bust, I was kind of between a 2 and a 4, but on the waist and the hip, I fell into the size 2. So before I printed out my pattern, I decided to look at the finished measurements to see how much ease they had allowed. On the finished bust measurement for size 2, the bust was just a little over 40 inches. So that was going to give me about 5.5 inches of ease. So I decided to go with just a straight size 2. So this pattern recommends knit fabric with about 25 to 50% vertical and horizontal stretch with good recovery. They suggest like French terry, jersey, or sweater knit. The fabric I chose to make it with is from Minerva. They call it a waffle sweater knit stretch fabric, and it's in the color rose pink. I think it's a really pretty color, and I like this waffle texture that it has. My only concern was it didn't have a lot of stretch, but this is not a super fitted garment. I didn't check out the vertical and horizontal stretch before I made the cardigan, but after I got it done, I went back to Minerva's site and looked up this fabric, and it actually only has a 10% vertical and horizontal stretch. And there was really only one part of the pattern that gave me any problems with that. So it didn't quite have the recommended stretch that was recommended, but I think it worked out okay in the end. I would consider this a beginner-friendly pattern because it doesn't have a zipper or any buttonholes. It doesn't have gathers. It was really quick to cut out. I think it took me a lot longer to tape all the pages together than to cut the sweater out itself. So this cardigan is unlined. It has raglan sleeves with some darts in the top that gives it a nice shape, patch pockets, and then it has an unlined hood at the back. Now the pattern does mention for you to keep in mind that the hood is unlined and that part of the wrong side of the fabric is going to show, so that you should keep that in mind when you're picking out fabric, that it looks good on either side. And this fabric was almost identical on each side. These little vertical kind of lines that run through it, one side I think they were just a little bit narrower, so I did kind of mark the front side of the pieces after I got them cut out so I wouldn't get them confused. But I think if any of them were reversed, you probably couldn't tell. For this pattern, I used both my serger and my regular sewing machine. You can make it all on a regular sewing machine. The only part of this cardigan that has interfacing is right at the top of the pockets. This area that's turned back is interface, and that just keeps this knit fabric from sagging. So for the construction, you're just going to make your darts in your sleeves and then join the front and the back pieces to the sleeve area. And then you'll begin working on the hood. The hood's just 2 pieces. It's really easy to put together. The pattern does call for twill tape to cover up this seam right here where it joins on the hood joins onto the sweater itself. Now I couldn't find any twill tape the right shade of rose or anything that I thought would really blend in with it, but I had been on Etsy and I had bought several pieces of pretty bias tape, and one of them had these rose colors in it. So instead of using twill tape to cover the seam, I just basically substituted the bias tape and folded it over the seam and stitched it down. So it's stitched down on both sides. Now the hood has a seam running down the middle of it, and I didn't like how that seam, that exposed seam looked. So what I did, I used the same bias tape and I enclosed this seam, wrapped this seam, but then I stitched it down flat. So I think that gives it a much nicer look than if I just had that exposed serger seam. So once you get the hood attached and the seams finished out, before you sew up the side seams and these seams on the sleeves, they want you to go ahead and either serge the edges or finish them out with some type of overlock stitch on your regular sewing machine. And that's because they want you to keep the seams open on the sides. You're going to press them open and on the sleeves. Now they do have some side slits on the side. I forgot to mention that I did take this up, I think 2.5 inches for the body and 2.5 inches on the arms. The pattern piece itself on the front and the back, it does have 2 different lines that you can use to lengthen or shorten. I'm fairly long-waisted and this does kind of dip in on the side, so I didn't want to shorten this part any, so I did all my shortening down here. So I think that did make maybe my slits a little bit not as deep, but they're still there. So once you finish out those edges, just going to sew to the top of this slit all the way down to your sleeve, and then they want you to base this area down, and then you're just going to top stitch it, and then you're going to top stitch the bottom of your hem. After that, you're going to attach this long band that's doubled over, and it is just serged all along the edges, and that was really easy. It wasn't really hardly any easing or stretching or anything like that, so this fabric did great for that. Before you put the band on, you're going to finish out both of these ends so that it's all seamed up, and then you're just going to make it meet this edge with the finished hem edge over here, so it gives it a pretty neat appearance. So I serged that. It does suggest that you tack down, I think, the bottom of this serged area just at the bottom, but I was looking at one of my ready-made cardigans. I have one that has a band. It doesn't have a hood, but it has a band just like this with a serged seam, and they had top stitched the edge of the seam down to keep it flat. So I don't know if you can tell that here, but that's what I did. I just top stitched it all along, just directly on top of the edge of this seam, all the way around. Once you get that done, all you lack is putting the bands on the sleeves and then finishing the top edges of your pockets, pressing the edges down, and then sewing them on your cardigan. So the only problem I really had with this fabric not being as stretchy as it was supposed to be was in these cuffs. I really had to stretch them as much as I could to join them onto the sleeve, and I think I wound up on each one, I think there is a little bitty tiny pucker, but it's on the inside by the seam on each of these sleeves. So it still worked. It would have been easier if it was stretchier. And if you do decide to make it with a sweater knit or a knit that's just not very stretchy, if you could find some rib knit that would match, that would work out really well and you wouldn't have those problems. So before I try it on, I'm going to tell you what I liked the most about it and what maybe I didn't like the most. I liked several things. I liked that there wasn't a lot of pieces and it was quick to cut out. I liked the shaping in the raglan sleeves. The pockets were easy to do, and this band was really easy to put on. There's probably only one thing that kind of bothers me about this pattern, and it is where the seam right here, where the band goes on to the hood. this top part, if you have your hood, you know, kind of out like this, I don't like this exposed seam. I mean, the thread, I did use threads that matched really well, and I don't mind these covered seams. I think they look cute with the bias tape. These exposed seams just sort of bother me a little bit. You can kind of bring this area up where these seams don't show as much, but then I think your hood just doesn't lay as nice, you know, because you're bunching this up. So I like the hood where it's kind of spread out more like that. But it may be, you know, if I wore it some, that I might just get used to that and it wouldn't bother me at all. Let me know in the comments below if a seam like this showing would bother you or keep you from making the cardigan. So now I'm going to go pop it on and you can see how it looks on me. So here's the finished cardigan on. I think it goes well with this little t-shirt that I had. Here's the back. Now I did take off 2.5 inches and I do like the length. This was the length I was going for. So I'm happy with that. I first thought I had made my sleeves too short before I got the bands on them. But I think now they're just about perfect. This fabric's really cozy. It does make a good cardigan. I do like the fit of this pattern. So all in all, I do like my finished cardigan. There are a couple of things that I might change next time. If I was going to make it again in this type of fabric that doesn't have a lot of stretch, I would go ahead and size up a size. Now this does fit me and it goes well over like say like this. This is kind of like a light thermal t-shirt. But if I wanted to wear it over like a bulkier shirt, I think it would be too tight. So I would probably size up so I could wear it over more things. Another small change I would make involves the front piece pattern. The front piece pattern on the sides has this little dip right here. So this is just a regular seam and this is where it turns back, and so they've got more fabric here, so I think you turn it back maybe like 3/4 of an inch and then you sew down to right here and then this folds back. Well, they want you to finish out your edges before you do those seams. And when I was serging this, it was really hard for me to try to do a continual serged edge with this little dip in here. Now, if you're more accomplished on your serger than I am, that might not be a problem for you. And if you're just doing some kind of overcast stitch on a regular sewing machine, it probably wouldn't be a big deal either. But the next time I make it, because I do use my serger to finish the seam out, I would just kind of do a gradual slanted cut right here and skip this little dip, because when you fold it back it's not going to make a big deal, but when you're serging this edge it's going to be a lot easier to go down a straight edge here or a slanted edge than do this little dip in there. So next time I'm going to remember to do that. I think if I had an option between the bias tape and using the twill tape to cover those seams, the twill tape would be better because it wouldn't add as much bulk to the seam. My sewing machine still didn't have any problems going over the little bump where the neck seam and the center seam of the hood matched, but it would be less bulkier than using the bias tape. But you can use bias tape just like I did, especially if you find a color or print that really goes well with your fabric. So I think that's the only changes I would make. I do wish this pattern came with an option to make it without a hood, because then I wouldn't even be concerned about this exposed seam because it wouldn't be showing. I typically don't use the hoods on my cardigans or hoodies. If it's cold enough to need a hood, I'm probably going to have a coat on or a heavier jacket. But all in all, I think it turned out pretty well. I am pretty pleased with it. It feels really cozy and I think it will go well into the springtime. So that's my review of Itch to Stitch Castillo Cardigan, and that is also my number 2 make of my Make 9 for 2024. The next project I'm working on, I've actually already got cut out, and that is the SoHo Purl quilted vest. Back in the fall, I had a video where I shared 13 free patterns that I would like to make in the winter, and the SoHo Purl quilted vest was one of them. So I've got the vest cut out. It's a really simple pattern, and all I have to really do this week is to sew on the bias tape around all the edges. So I'll be sharing that in my next video. I also just did a little order with Stone Mountain and Daughter Fabrics that I may go ahead and share with you in the next video. I was really trying not to buy any more fabric, but last week I was kind of having a down day. One of my little chickens had gotten sick and died, and so I just needed a little something to cheer me up. But all the fabrics that I've ordered from them are for spring and summer. I think I already have enough winter fabrics for this winter and next winter. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you did, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed already, I would love for you to hit that subscription button. I would also love to hear in the comments if you like the Castillo Cardigan or if you didn't like it, and I'd also love to hear whether this exposed seam right here would keep you from wearing the cardigan or if it wouldn't bother you at all. So until my next video, take care and happy sewing.